Keep my big B.A., keep my friends the same. Keep the government out of my business and y'all can keep the change.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas.
We know what we need. We know who to blame.
Catch the Free American Hour, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
The USA, and y'all can keep the change.
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. My guest today is J.B. Campbell, first time on my show. Welcome, J.B.
Well, thank you. Thank you, and thank you to your friend.
Yes, that's just one of my neighbors coming over to listen to the show, and my dog's warning me that somebody's opening my door. JB, I've just been reading one of your latest article again, and you know, it's I can see why that you probably piss as many people off as I do. You know, you referred to President Kennedy as President Jekyll. He declared war on the CIA and the military, and on the Federal Reserve, and on Israel. He planned to eliminate the CIA and as an interim step, put Bobby in charge of most matters. Hence Bobby's knowledge of Oswald and Russell. JFK certainly planned to end the Vietnam aggression that was started by Eisenhower's CIA, far beyond anything Ron Paul has proposed. Kennedy actually issued over $4 billion in U.S. notes, completely stripping the Federal Reserve gangsters of their interest payments of that amount. And I carry one of those $5 bills around that says United States note in my wallet, just to show people what that there is an answer to the Federal Reserve. And you go further in this article and pretty much lay the assassination of Kennedy and the beginnings of the criminal state of Israel at the feet of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Yeah, well, that was Kennedy's good side. You know, President Jekyll, Dr. Jekyll, was a great humanitarian, but Mr. Hyde was something else. And Kennedy had a dark side too, as I mentioned there.
Yes.
He was somehow, he and his brother, you know, they got into power because father Joe used his old organized crime buddies to rig the elections in Chicago and West Virginia. And he just barely squeaked by Nixon because of that vote fraud. And then, inexplicably, he sicked his brother Bobby as Attorney General on the mob who had helped him. Well, you know, as I said, I don't see how that could end well. But he was a treacherous man, although, you know, he definitely had a very good side to him, and he was probably our greatest president. It's just that he had these fatal flaws that got him killed. He took on everybody, and he took on Israel, he took on the Federal Reserve.
I've referred to the war on terror as a war against anyone, anywhere in the world that doesn't want one world banking. I mean, and these are the people that you're talking about in the Council on Foreign Relations. I mean, if your president tells you got a new world order, now we can see a new world coming into view. I mean, that ought to be proof enough for anybody. So what makes us controversial here? You were a little bit worried about coming on my program, but maybe I'm afraid I'll get in trouble. I got the FBI and council and the whole Homeland Security, you know, trying to intimidate people to come on my show. What's going on here? What do you? I mean, what this? We've been a communist country here since the Federal Reserve took over, as far as I can tell. What's happening here, Jamie?
Well, I mean, a lot of people can explain what's happening and how bad it is. I don't hear anybody giving a solution. And I don't think that there's any peaceful or safe way to deal with mass murderers in the Council on Foreign Relations or the military or the CIA or whatever. These people can only be dealt with the old-fashioned American way. That's with guns. That's what I stand for. I don't stand for complaining. I mean, I've complained, but I never complain without offering a solution. And my solution is always the same one. We have to destroy the people who are designing these evil policies to kill so many people here and around the world. So I've been doing this now since 1989 when I started the militia movement, and I stand for counter-violence against aggression. There's no other way to deal with this.
I got demonized by the ADL for starting the militia in New Mexico, and they tell you, you know, oh, Clay started the militia, they advertised it in the Free American magazine. They just don't tell you that I did it in the governor's office. We weren't exactly a terrorist organization. We certainly wide open and just do it. I said, what part of the Second Amendment don't you folks understand? But that really escalated the war because they blew up their own building to try to blame it on the militias.
Yeah, let me go into that militia thing because I used the word for a specific reason. As we know, the Second Amendment was written by James Madison, and it was very poorly written. And Patrick Henry was furious when he read it because of this crazy clause that starts it out by saying the right, well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Then it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. But the opening clause destroyed the entire beauty of what Patrick Henry demanded. And of course, James Madison was a Federalist. He stood for the Constitution. You know, we were supposed to be under the Articles of Confederation and perpetual union between the states, but these Federalists wanted a central bank, and you can't have a central bank without having a central government to protect it. And so they gave us this 7 articles called the Constitution, which all that is a program about how to run the government. And I don't believe it came from the Iroquois Nation. It came from the Masonic lodges, and they simply used their Masonic rules of order to create these 7 articles of how to run a government. Well, Patrick Henry and George Mason and Richard Lee, they said, well, wait a minute, where are our rights enumerated? Well, we don't need that, you know, trust us. We're good people.
Yeah, we're the government, trust us, right?
He said, we need rights. And Patrick Henry wanted the gun rights foremost. So we got stuck with this trick, this Second Amendment, talking about a well-regulated militia. Well, what the heck is that? There's no such thing as a well-regulated militia. Nobody in the Constitution, or nobody anywhere in the Bill of Rights, anywhere, is authorized to regulate the militia. And people say, oh, it just means, keep them in good shape. No, it does not. It has a specific meaning. The armed forces are regular, and that means they're subject to regulations. The militia has no regulations. It is strictly voluntary. It was critical to the revolution, but it can't be controlled. And that's what these guys want to do. They hate the idea of Americans having guns and being free. So they stuck this nasty little clause on there. Now, ever since 1840, as I wrote in my book, judges have used this nasty little clause, this well-regulated militia thing, to say, well, now, what is this sawed-off shotgun? I don't see how this relates to a well-regulated militia, and you, sir, should go to prison. There's no 38 special mentioned in the well-regulated. No, this is how they ruined us.
Now, Ayn Rand said in Atlas Shrugged that the government has no control over honest citizens, so they must make criminals out of us. And that's what they're trying to do with the guns. That's what they isn't that exactly what they did with the drugs? I mean, we got governments that are running the drugs here. We got our armies protecting the heroin field, and we're still putting people in prison over here. We've got the largest prison population out there. I mean, I've tried to point people out. Well, look what happened when the communists took over in Russia. They killed 60 million white Russians. What makes you think they don't want to kill you? And is that an accurate statement?
Well, yeah. But I mean, the only way you could prevent this sort of thing from happening is to have guns. It's the only way. So the design of the Federalists from the very beginning was somehow to disarm us. They paid lip service to it, and it's a Jekyll and Hyde amendment. It's got the good side, you know, about rights won't be infringed, but the question is, whose rights won't be infringed? Is it people's or the militias? So when I was in college at the University of Nevada in Reno, I was in political science class, and one of the students raised his hand and said to the instructor, well, isn't every gun law illegal according to the Second Amendment? And the clever instructor said, well, now you must see the whole amendment. It talks about a well-regulated militia, which we have as the National Guard. Now, the National Guard has guns down at the Armory. So the Second Amendment is in force because the National Guard has the guns. That's the people. I thought, wow, there is something I didn't count on, because I wasn't that familiar with the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or the Second Amendment or the well-regulated militia. So anyway, I jammed the militia right down the throat of the government, and they didn't like it. And there was only one way to stop, and all it was a state of mind. There was no such thing as the militia. It was just a state of mind. It was guys saying, yeah, I want guns, I want ammo, I'm going to keep my guns and my ammo, and you can have them when you're prying for my cold dead fingers, that kind of thing. That wasn't what I had in mind.
I mean, you could call that militia or rednecks. I'm not sure.
Well,
cowboys.
I mean, what's the difference? So, the idea was, it was a belligerent state of mind, and that's about all I was able to create. I wanted to use this militia because as I was researching it, I found there was in the Militia Act of 1792 a reason for the militia, and that was to suppress combinations too powerful for the ordinary course of judicial proceedings. And you know, up until then, I kind of disliked the militia. I read about the Whiskey Rebellion, and I read how the militia was used to put down tax rebels and that kind of thing. But I didn't like this militia thing. But once I read that clause, you know, to suppress combinations too powerful for the ordinary course of judicial proceedings, I said, that's what we're doing here. The Council on Foreign Relations is the ultimate combination too powerful for the ordinary course of judicial proceedings. So I'm going to use this militia thing to suppress that. Of course, I didn't get very far, and as far as I got was the biggest mass armed movement in probably world history in the shortest amount of time. But it didn't really do anything. So now I don't use the word militia at all anymore, because they're totally compromised by federal agents and police and Jews and JDL have infiltrated it totally, as they did with Timothy McVeigh. I mean, he was their guy. They may have known it, they may not have known it, but they were in charge of Timothy McVeigh, the Southern Poverty Law Center, for, they say, 2 years. So now I'm saying, let's just call it the resistance, small r, men and women, because the militia only had men in it, but we need everybody. And we need to overthrow the invisible government, the Council on Foreign Relations, and we need to overthrow the federal government, which is, trying to kill us all.
And they're doing it in so many ways. I mean, we've got chemtrails, we got GMO foods, we've got pharmaceuticals, and of course they control, and I've tried to point this out in my book, Mystery Babylon, that they control the drug trade. I said I stopped doing cocaine when I found out the CIA was making all the money out of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest cocaine dealer, trafficker in U.S. history was Oliver North and Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. So, that's what you're up against, working for George H.W. Bush.
They were all worked for George Bush, and I happen to know Barry Seal when he stopped off in Dallas to visit while he was flying to Mena, Arkansas. All of the drugs run in by Noriega, Bush's partner Noriega.
You read Terry Reed's book, Compromise, and he knew Barry Seal quite well. He flew with him, flew all the stuff in.
That's right. Delivered a couple of kilos to Jeb and George. Yes, I've got this. Actually, I have a signed copy of Compromise right here. Terry and Janice are really wonderful people.
Well, he reveals that Barry Seal thought his get-out-of-jail-free card was his videotape of George and Jeb Bush offloading cocaine out of a fat lady, his C-123. But it didn't keep him alive because Oliver North and George Bush got him murdered in Baton Rouge when he was in rehab.
That's absolutely correct. He dropped off. He stopped off at my place in Dallas and dropped off some of the best Oaxacan I've ever had.
Yeah.
It, you know, what you about the militias. People would call me and say, "Well, Clay, do you know of a militia?" And John Trockman has been a good friend of mine for many, many years. You know, that's of course why they brought in Bo Greitz to. I said you could look at Bo a couple of ways. You know, he says he saved Randy Weaver from the FBI. I say he saved the FBI from the militia. And
okay, let me tell you something, Clayton. You know, when I wrote that book, and then Trockman started the militia of Montana, my friend Louis Beam said, "Why don't you go up to Montana and get with those guys? They were actually doing something." So I just got wiped out in the earthquake in Los Angeles. So fortunately, the insurance company paid for the move. I moved to Knoxville, Montana, and took with me a whole bunch of machine guns, and I gave to Trockman's outfit some high quality machine guns, and we were quite jacked up. But then I found out that John Trockman was working for the FBI and the ATF. He helped a sting operation, and he was reporting to an FBI agent named Mike Houck in Missoula once a month. He was quite open about it. When I finally realized what the heck he was telling me, of course I got my guns back from him and his brother and his nephew, and I'd given them an MG3 German machine gun, an MG34 German machine gun, a Sten gun, some really high quality stuff, and all the ammunition. So the FBI knew the whole time, and the ATF knew the whole time that I was doing this. Of course, they left me strictly alone because I knew I was up there looking for a fight. And I did get some of the militia Montana guys ready to go. But the Trockmans, believe me, they are 24-karat phonies, and they would turn over all the hundreds of new names that people would call in and ask for advice on how to start a militia, and he would turn over the new names every month to Mike Houck. Now Mike Houck came to my place in Hamilton, Montana, about 15 months after the OKC bombing. And he wanted to start a dialogue with me. Now, this guy had been after me for 2 years. He knew all about the machine guns. He knew about everything. He didn't say a word. He pretended to come there interested in my scrap tire disposal thing. So anyway, you got to be real careful with these people because the militia movement is totally federally infiltrated.
I've told people if you join a militia and there's more than 10 people in it and you haven't known all of them your whole life, one of them's a Fed, and they're trying to get you up on something illegal.
Yeah.
And you think they are planning on using these FEMA camps that we've been talking about and they've already tried to demonize us, and they've already got the whole they've suspended posse comitatus pretty much with this new authorization.
Yeah, what is their plan? I mean, they're waging war on us. They know something we don't know. Why is it necessary to have these draconian martial law plans now? So, of course, they're going to use these camps. They just have to figure out a credible way to do it. That's their tough assignment. You know, nobody believes them anymore.
They run my name in the Free American Magazine and Guide to Right-Wing Extremists, put out by the FBI here in Phoenix. And the governor was Gary Johnson at the time, and you know, like I said, I formed, you know, I set up the whole New Mexico militia. We set it up in his office. We met in his office, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
But,
well, that's what Oliver North was trying to do the same thing. Once the militia thing took off, he tried to start a government, you know, what do you call it, private-public partnership kind of thing with the militia, but it's going to be run by Oliver North. So nobody bought that. You know, at that point they knew how crooked he was.
Well, he was this Operation Watchtower. Now, I got a hold of that back when I was doing a motorcycle magazine in Miami, and I ran that story about Bush authorizing and covering for the Mossad and the CIA. They used the special forces to build the radio towers down in Colombia to guide 100 planes into Oakbrook Air Force Base, and the cargo was cocaine. So that's the first time I got threatened by the CIA. They're in this whole drug business, and they're bringing all these drugs into and selling them to us, taking the money out of the country, and then putting us in jail for having them. I mean, shouldn't that seems to me the whole war on drugs is a war on the American people, the same way the war on terror is a war against anybody who doesn't want to go along with one world government. And the political answers simply ain't there, because all of these politicians are bought and paid for by the bankers.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the whole deal. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And that's what I stand for. I don't think anybody should be complaining anymore about what's going on without a counter proposal. With every article or essay about this atrocity or what's coming, you know, we must get out of this defensive thing and get on the offense. And that means willing to fight, willing to kill, not willing to die. You know, I'm not saying that. I don't want anybody to say that. But we became a country. We broke away supposedly from the king by a willingness to fight and kill.
Now, what's this has always been my question. Now, I took an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The FBI took the same oath. BTF took the same oath. These politicians took the same oath. Why aren't they doing that? It's like Forrestal told McCarthy. You know, if they were just stupid, occasionally they'd make a mistake in our favor.
Well,
why aren't these law enforcement? Why aren't they arresting the bankers? And
because they're not afraid of us. They're afraid of the bankers, and they're not afraid of us yet. We have to make them afraid of us, so they'll be polite, deferential, and interested in our welfare. And they don't do that. This class of people doesn't tend to do that unless it's afraid of you. So that is our mission, is to make them afraid of dealing with us, so much so that they will do what we want them to do, until we figure out that we really don't need them, because they've told us time and time again they're not required to come to our aid. So what do we need them for?
They've already prepared for the descent by trying to label people like us as extremists, as radical, as terrorists. They want to make everybody that's taken an oath to the Constitution, anybody that believes in liberty, they want to make us into terrorists.
Well, let's make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, they need to be terrified of us as Americans. We're the ones who pay the bills. We buy their guns and their bulletproof vests and their cars and all their gear and radios and the weapons that they use against us. So we're the boss. And when the boss doesn't like what he finds, he has to make some changes. So let's reestablish ourselves as the boss here, instead of just being victims of these people. We got to toughen up. We got to get real tough with these people.
Now, the problem that, first of all, if you or I go out and take an aggressive stance, they'll just come over and shoot us or arrange an accident. That's what they did with me.
Well, we have to differentiate between aggression and self-defense. And as far as I'm concerned, we are in a self-defensive mode. We have to become willing to defend ourselves, our loved ones, our friends, our pets, our cars, I mean, our houses.
I came up with a plan for that. It's called re-establishing the self-sufficient family farm, taking over old farms and ranches, making small little communities out of them. A village, Liberty Village. Grow your own food, generate your own industry, energy, and you have veterans, and you give homes. We got homeless veterans out there, and more people have killed. More Vietnam vets have killed themselves here in America since they got back from Vietnam than were killed in Vietnam. There's a tremendous rate of suicide among soldiers.
Not just Vietnam, Iraq and Afghanistan too.
Yes.
But now we had a deal here a couple months ago near here. Some people that use organic food and raise organic food went to a kind of a picnic with all their organic food, and some crazy broad with the FDA showed up with bottles of bleach and ordered them to put bleach on all their stuff and destroy it so it couldn't be eaten. Now, you know, this is outrageous, but that crazy broad should have had bleach poured all over her. That's the only way to deal with these insane power mongers. We got to get tough, man. We got to be willing to defend ourselves. Nobody's going to pour bleach on my food. I promise you that.
It's the problem. Even doing one of these villages requires people working together, you know, and what they've tried to do, I say their whole strategy is divide and conquer. Oh, you're a Republican, well, I'm a Democrat. Well, you're a liberal, well, I'm a conservative. Yeah, it's you got two wings of the same bird in all these situations. They fund both sides, and if you stand up against any of these, you're demonized. I mean, look at what they've done to Edgar Steele for talking about the Jews. You know, gee, you shouldn't use the word Jew. Why not?
Now, the problem with Edgar Steele is that he was not willing to defend himself. You know, he's a lawyer. Yes. And he thinks that there's the rule of law. Well, there's no rule of law. We got the law of the gun. It's the title of my latest essay. We're under the law of the gun. If you think the law is going to protect you, you're dreaming. The only thing that protects you, as I've proved in Montana, is firepower and the willingness to use it at the drop of a hat the minute you are threatened, or your loved ones are threatened, or your friends are threatened. Anybody. Doesn't matter. We have to stick together here and jack up our ideas and be willing to defend ourselves against these monsters in uniforms that we pay for.
I keep, well, you know, that was the whole motivation behind me trying to start the militias in New Mexico, and whatever I started there, still running ACM is ACMN is still working. Jim Stroud, but if this even Obama just put out an executive order talking about the rural areas being a source of, you know, great source of money, power there, but he's talking about using the federal government to come in and take over these local small farm towns and farming towns. It would seem to me that would be one of the best places to start trying to organize people out of some of these small Texas towns, small towns in Tennessee, all across the country, and showing that if we somehow work together in a small town, we could arm ourselves, we could defend our right now, you got, you know, former generals that are saying that our area on the border is a war zone, and we're just told not to go in there because there might be some drug dealers in that area. They got signs up like that here in Arizona.
Yeah, well, the Minutemen, when George W. Bush was president, they were pretty active, but George W. Bush provided the Mexicans with the locations of the Minutemen so that the wetbacks and drug traffickers and human traffickers could get around them. So this is what we're up against.